Hello and welcome back. There's Socks behind. He's just finished shouting for the afternoon. He's been outside. He's glaring at me. I thought I'd talk about some annuals and Christmassy books, things like that. And just pick up a huge pile of them, or a fairly large pile of them, and talk about them. Posy Simmons's Fred is a picture book from 70s and 80s maybe, about a cat who dies and then is a kind of legendary figure in the neighbourhood, and the kids get involved in a nighttime cat spectacular. It's a really lovely book. One of the picture puffins of a certain era. These books are always worth picking up wherever you find them. 87 this was. They had some really wonderful titles. I don't know if they still go as a list. Similarly, Raymond Briggs's Father Christmas books, Goes on Holiday, and then the original one. All of these have been filmed, of course. Oh, this is a really wrecked copy that I got second-hand somewhere. Kind of well loved and not very well looked after. Somebody's bitten chunks out of some of the pages. I love this book. Where's the page where he goes over the rooftops? Where he's having his sandwiches, isn't he, sitting on top of a roof? There's something about Raymond Briggs's world which is so consistent. There he is. You feel that all the characters in all of his books belong in the same world. And he does have them cameo and appear in each other's books. And there's his Christmas one. I think when they did the movie, short, they did a short, didn't they? They folded one book around the other. It's very clever. This is from a couple of years ago, The Grumpus, by Alex T. Smith, somebody whose work I've been following in recent years. I think this was bought as a present, actually. The colours are just sublime. Beautiful. Yes, I might have to read this myself rather than give it away. Smells new. I must have bought it last year. And this copy of this particular story. A Christmas Memory, Truman Capote. This one's illustrated by Beth Peck, and it's a Knopf book from the States. And it's one of those ones where they have these very almost elegiac illustrations. This American tradition of doing very realistic illustrations in kids' books, and everything looks kind of tragic. Even when the story perks up, it becomes funny. This is one of my favourite Christmas stories of all time, Truman Capote. Looking back at his childhood, when he has this household of eccentric aunts, and one who he's closest to, Sook, and his little dog. And together they make 32 Christmas cakes each year. They save up all their pennies that they've accrued through killing flies through the summer. It's in the deep south. And they buy all the ingredients to make 32 Christmas cakes to send to all these people, from the president down, everybody they've met that year. And it's really about the end of childhood. It finishes with him being sent away. It's a beautiful book about childhood. And I try and make time for it every year. Come on, Socks. Now, this is a fairly recent picture book by Zeb Soanes and James Mayhew. I've got a few James Mayhew books from over the years. This was one that was done for yeah, it was raising money for homeless people, but it's part of a series about Gaspard the fox, a London fox. The pictures are just gorgeous. And again, that particular atmosphere. It's a really lovely book. It's like this kind of atmosphere of everything being twilight the whole time. Christmas being in this kind of constant gloaming. It's a great word. Michael Foreman, whose work I really love, his watercolours. His Christmas Treasury, which I think I only discovered in recent years. It's a kind of it's quite a nice miscellany, all of which provide an excuse to for him to illustrate his favourite bits of stories, like the Snow Angels episode from Little House in the Big Woods and Gift of the Magi. It was the latest thing, the most recent encounter with his work that I've had was reading those stories in the Daphne du Maurier collection, when his atmosphere was a lot darker and spookier. There's him doing Wind in the Willows, the famous Christmas chapter from that book. This isn't Christmassy, but it's still a lovely picture book that I think I got around Christmas, maybe in the book sales, a couple of years ago. It's a new retelling, an edit of Under Milk Wood by Cerys Matthews and illustrated by Kate Evans. It's a lovely book. I'm noticing something in common here in the picture books I love, and it is that kind of twilight atmosphere in each one. That's really interesting. But I'm noticing that for the first time. This is such a rich text, and what's lovely is taking just a few lines at a time to really let you dwell inside this strange long poem. Again, one of those books that will live with you for a long time. That's what picture books are, I think. Books that are quick to read in the kind of first instance when you sit down with them, but they last longer in terms of actual time because you go back to them. I don't know whose this is, if it's Jeremy's or mine, or if I picked it up somewhere in more recent years. It's a kind of early 80s reprint of some Peanuts cartoons, which are... It's very funny reading them in this large format, because when we were kids, they had these, they all came out in these little corgi B format paperbacks, which we all loved. But they're great to read in whatever format. Socks? Come on. I think I showed this recently, this Batman annual, which is absolutely wrecked. 1971. And I got it cheap in Didsbury because it's so wrecked. But it's a lovely place to read these 50s and 60s Batman strips. I think what they call the Silver Age of comics, when things were quite camp and ridiculous and science fiction-y. I love this one where Batman, Robin and Superman end up living in caveman times, and they all grow beards and live in a cave. There's something peculiar about that. Come on. Come on. What else? Now, these are more recent anthologies that I'm not sure what they're going to be like yet. A Simply Wonderful Christmas, which is a kind of literary advent calendar by Silke Leffler. Looks like it's in translation. And The Orchard Christmas Treasury, Sally Emerson. The kind of things you find in the middle of the summer when nobody wants this kind of thing, and I just buy them and tuck them away. Usually they've cost not a lot, but I feel again like I'm rescuing them. Here's something I've had a long time, the Play Hour annual. For 1979, I think it was actually my brother's. I loved Play Hour and these kind of comics in the 70s. Lots of them had characters from TV shows like the Mr. Men and the Wombles and Magic Roundabout, and those are nice enough, but their original characters like Pinky Puff, the elephant, were kind of even better, because this was the only place you could read about them. And some of them seemed so old-fashioned. I think there were reprints from 40s and 50s comics that they mashed together in these. Bunny Cuddles seems suspiciously old-fashioned to me. It doesn't really belong to 1979. Look at that Magic Roundabout. The artwork is so lovely. And for some, well, I know the reason. It does evoke great nostalgia in me, flicking through this kind of annual. This isn't an annual, but it's a similar size. Babar the Elephant. I've got a number of these, but this is the Babar and Father Christmas book. It's where you go to the North Pole and meet Father Christmas, and he's got these weird little goblin elves in onesies, and they're kind of horrible little old men. They kind of slightly give me the creeps, and you see a cross-section of where they all live and do their Christmassy business. There's something peculiar about Babar. I think it's that kind of 1930s, I assume that's what it is, kind of artwork, which feels almost like a political cartoon or caricature. Don't know what it is. It just belongs to a different era completely. I love it, but it kind of fills me with dread as well. I don't know why. I love these pictures of him in Paris on the left bank. Yeah, I don't know why I find Babar spooky. There must be an association there that I can't quite snag. What else have I got to hand that's Christmassy? Nothing more there. These aren't Christmassy. Here's a vintage Sooty annual. Well before my time. In the 60s, I think. And I just love the way it's illustrated. Look at that blend of photos and drawing. Kind of collage. Really, there's so much work in the artwork as well. They look a bit like, I suppose, Enid Blyton naughty illustrations. I was shocked to see that Sooty was completely white back in the 60s when he was in black and white on TV. He was orange in my childhood. I don't know who the illustrator is, but it's the same all the way through, and it's really lovely work. What else? Oh, there's a pile here. More annuals. The Doctor Who annuals I've talked about all over the place. I wrote a book about them once upon a time, about 10 years ago. I really like the Doctor Who annuals, and the fact that they were written and drawn in Manchester by world distributors is fantastic to me. I think that's magic. And every time I look at the abandoned building where it used to happen on Lever Street, this was an era that, look at that, it's like oil paintings in every single frame. Look at the cat. This late 70s era, I still don't know if it was close to the TV show or ridiculously separate from the TV show. There are thematic links, but little else. And there was a kind of sword and sorcery feeling about the stories in the annual, which it does kind of fit the TV show if you think about it. The time of the androids of Tara. The Bear, another Raymond Briggs, not one of my favourites. But still, I have to have a nice copy of it. TV comic from 1970. An annual always had to have that kind of cover to be a really good annual. It had to have all the characters together doing something ridiculous, in this case skiing. And when I was a kid, I used to draw pictures of all the characters from all over the place, all my favourites, in one place. It was always this idea of a big get-together of different characters. This has both Doctor Who and the Avengers in. The Avengers go to Fableland. It's a text story in which they come across characters from Alice in Wonderland. An episode I would have loved to have seen on TV. Maybe some kind of mashup of mid-60s Avengers with the Jonathan Miller Alice in Wonderland on the BBC. Look at that with Long John Silver coming out of some kind of magic mirror and the Mad Hatter working the controls. That is exactly the kind of story I love. Kids from Fame annual. I think there were 2 of these and I just loved them. This isn't one of my early actual copies. Something else that I had to find on eBay again as a replacement. It's those early scenes in this particular story where they're throwing snowballs outside on the streets of New York. I have this idea, this image of a very snowy New York being my kind of favourite place. There's another picture book by James Mayhew, text by Jenny Korolek. Now this is from 1994. It's a really beautiful story. The Boy in the Cloth of Dreams. Again, those twilight blues. There's a touch of Chagall in this. I found this in a charity shop a couple of years ago, and I've read it again and again. I think it's a really gorgeous book. It's just a nice, simple story, but very rich, dreamlike. Golden Snowflake by Francoise and Frederick Jules. This is a sweet story. I don't know when I found this or how. It's about a snowman, I think, wanting to come to life, or he is alive and he wants his soul, and finding the golden snowflake. Oh, it's about never melting. But the illustrations are really lovely. I'm quite picky about illustrations and cartoons and things like that. Only certain ones pass muster with me, and some of them really don't. This is a nice book. Again, I think I bought it as a present and then decided maybe I bought a second copy and gave that as a present. It's one of these recent retellings of classics, and Geraldine McCaughrean retells The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett, and you have these beautiful drawings by Margarita Cuctina. I'll find you a good one. I don't know how you'd describe the style. To me, they're very like 1950s Disney storybooks. The colours are Mary, I forget her surname, Mary Blair Yes, he did those. Oh, it is very much like that. He did the paintings for those Disney books, especially Alice in Wonderland and Sleeping Beauty. Purnell republished them in this country, and this is somebody going back to that kind of feel. If only we had a animated film of this particular book in this style, that would be amazing. I'm all in favour of the retellings, especially when it's somebody like Geraldine McLaughlin doing it. McCaughrean doing the retelling. She does it extremely well. I love The Secret Garden, but I know it's a heavy text. It's Edwardian and slightly ornate, and to just give it a little bit of a shake and watch some of the more elaborate bits drop off and just freshens it up a bit, I'm all in favour. And I think Nosy Crow, who published this, did some more like this. I must check what else they've done, because people fling up their hands in horror at the idea of boulderizing books, but it's not that, is it? Books change over the years. They're not sacred, and sometimes they have to be recast slightly in order to find their audience still. And I think that's a nice way of doing it. But I will check what else Nosy Crow have done like that. I was an English student all that time. For a long time, I still am really. And it meant that you had to read some very heavy, ploddy, thick old novels. And they could have done with a bit of a trimming. That's what I think. A lot of them. Just to get down to the good bits. It's probably sacrilege to suggest such a thing. Anyway, there's some picture books. Maybe I'll do some more of that. I've still got a whole lot more around me, and I might read you some stuff as well. Okay, hope everyone's well. See you again soon.